What is up, everybody? Welcome to Friday Night AV, and it has been a while since I have gone live on here. I apologize for that. First off, we have been super busy. We were getting ready for Base brings us together. Kat and I were getting a lot of stuff done over the last couple of weeks. She will be on here with me next Wednesday night when we go live and talk about that whole event. That was an absolute blast. We had 62 people here from 13 different states. And man, it was a whirlwind, but we pulled it off and everything went great. So tonight, I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 20. Where's all this time going? Man, I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun, right? I'd like to say hey to everybody in the chat. JTR Cowboy joining us this evening. What is up, brother? The special that you did on my special guest tonight, I'm actually going to watch after this. JTR Cowboy did a cool room tour with a buddy of mine, Ray. That's our special guest tonight from Expert Pro Sound. Ray's actually been up to our house. He's been up here twice for some demos and for a gathering. I'm going to make my way down to Ray. A lot of stuff going on with the channel. A lot of stuff has been going on, but ever so slowly. But we will get there eventually, right? Good things come to those who wait. So I'd like to welcome everybody in the chat. Come on here, hang out with you guys for about an hour on a Friday night. And without further ado, I'm going to bring my buddy Ray on, and we're going to get on. We're going to get this train rolling, talk about some audio and video. Mike, Paul, Rob, Haterade, thanks for joining, man. Everybody else. So without further ado, Ray, my brother, what's up, man?
Hey, Scott. Hi, everybody.
Hey, so for you guys that don't know, I shared a video of Ray's room the other day that the home theater dude did, correct?
Yeah.
And now he just had another special on Haterade Cowboy Cinema's YouTube channel, another special drop. No spoilers. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm looking forward to. What was that experience? What was that experience like for you, Ray?
First time, right? So the one with Chris, the home theater dude, that was like very spontaneous, right? He showed up with another buddy of mine, did a 10-minute video. So that was nowhere the thoroughness and the prep that Jordan did, that last week. That was a new experience for me. Really enjoyed it. I typically enjoy just having people over and just like similar to your hobby, just experiencing and looking at expressions and enjoying some time together. But yeah, it was a good experience. Really enjoyed it. And man, I tell you, hats off to Jordan. Man, he is a pro. Totally pro.
Yeah, Jordan's a good dude, and I had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and very informative and pays a lot of attention to detail. So
absolutely.
He came prepared. How long was he? How long were you guys hanging out to make the video?
It was a little longer than he expected. I think we were here. We ran into some issues with the equipment, so about 7 hours it took to get through it. But about an hour of that is just recovering some of the I think content we thought we had lost to recover that back. But it flew by. But really had a blast. But he did pay attention to every single detail, right? Made sure he covered every single aspect of the room. Didn't hurry it through. Talked about anything and everything. So really job well done.
Rob Zelinka, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he said that he watched it. He said it was an awesome review of your room, so that's cool. He said, "What part of Wisconsin are you from?" Rob, I'm an hour south of Chicago, and Ray's actually from Texas. So no. Neither one of us are from Wisconsin. I had a lot of visitors from Wisconsin here, but no, neither one of us. Oh, Haterade said that his camera shut off mid-shoot. Maybe Paul is Sean. Okay.
So he found out, actually, Jordan found out that his camera has a recover feature, which he had never known. So he learned something new. So fortunately, he was able to recover a lot of this back. So, things happen, but yeah, I'm glad his camera had that feature. Rob Zelinka and I actually met a few months back. I think maybe a year now. I think Rob. So he is here in just outside of Houston, but he's a great guy as well. So we've hung out a couple of times. He's building an Ascendo room. So really, really nice.
So you're gonna go over there and check it out when he's done?
I've been there once, but yeah, once he gets his infrasonic subs in there, then definitely will check it out. But he's a great guy as well, very welcoming.
Well, first of all, Ray, I want to say I appreciate you taking time out Friday night. I know, you got a family and everything too. For you to step away from everything, come hang out with me and
No, man, I
community.
enjoyed the stuff. Yeah, anytime.
I didn't have to twist your arm too hard, but
No, not at all. Neither did Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan, I actually reached out to Jordan, and it took a while to schedule it, but we got it done. It was really, really, really good experience.
So before we kind of dive into what you're doing and with the hobby and with your business now, what's a little overview? Who's Ray outside of this hobby? On a day-to-day basis, what's Ray doing with his life?
Yeah, so I've got a big family, very blessed. Have 4 girls, which keep us busy. They're grown older now, so they're relatively independent. But you're as a parent, you never really step away from that duty. So that keeps us quite busy on a daily basis. My wife is a realtor, so she has a pretty busy schedule, quite unpredictable schedule. So we both have to pitch in to kind of get the stuff done around the house. And also, my mother and my mother-in-law live with us, so we've got a lot of women in the house. So my media room is my savior when
Yeah.
when the estrogen gets high.
Yeah.
So, but from a professionally, I'm a finance guy. I work for Cisco Foods now, but I'd been working for BP for 20 plus years. Fortunately, lost my job last year, which was when we get into this, one of the incentives to kind of start keeping me busy somehow. I'll tell you a little bit of story about that. But other than that, I do try, Scott, to spend some time volunteering at a local level as much as I can, because I truly believe it is important to give back. All of us who are here, I believe we have been blessed, and I believe you have to be grateful for the blessings you've been given, and giving back to the community and people who maybe are not as privileged as you are is a great way to show that gratitude. So that's something I spend quite a bit of time with as well. And I'm a people first person. I like to connect with people. This is just one example of that. And then, I firmly believe that if you're not a nice human being and you don't treat others with some decency, and you're not nice to people, then it doesn't matter what faith you come from or what you follow. So to me, you're never going to be successful if you don't treat people right, and you'll never have peace in your life. So to me, I spend a lot of time trying to build. I don't have a lot of friends, for example, but the ones that I have are really rock solid, right? So that's, to me, is a very important part of my life, is with my friends and my circle, and we try to hang out on the weekends. Families get together. We have just a very informal gathering, get together. We'll play some cards. We'll have a nice wholesome meal. But that's who I am, as an individual. And the time just flies, especially these days. But I do make time for my home theater on the weekends. That's the only time I get to enjoy it, unfortunately. But I do make sure, even if I'm coming back, 10, 11 o'clock from a gathering, I'll still come up here for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. It's just my peace, my sanctuary.
I believe everybody in the chat, especially if they know us, that they're the same way with theirs. I think we're all kind of guilty sometimes, just walking in a room, taking a look around, putting a smile on your face, and just it is. I live with all girls too, so
yeah.
I could feel you with it. It's nice just having a little 14 by 16 foot area that's
yours.
That just belongs. They can have the rest of the house. I don't even care.
Yeah, and the best thing about this is my wife has been, very supportive, right? She doesn't get in the way about what you're buying, why are there big boxes coming into your room. Her only request is make sure that your room doesn't fall down and the house doesn't fall down. That's her only request, and it's a very sincere because she truly believes that one day it will happen, and I hope it doesn't. But yeah, but she's been very supportive of my hobby, and she understands that this is something I need for myself.
Yeah, I believe that's very important in any hobby that any of us would have, that the spousal support. Certainly, it's nice to not have to. I got some friends that'll literally sneak some gear into the room and be like, "Oh, I don't think she would ever know." Yeah, I don't know. I just I just kind of do what I want. I mean, obviously within reason, there's always conversations about the stuff, but that like asking for permission or having to sneak, oh, she's gone. I guess, that'd be a rough way for me to live.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell her, hey, look, I'm looking again. She thinks I'm done, but I'm not done.
Yeah. We're like Kat told me the other day, she goes, you'll never be done. She goes, I've accepted it. I've come to peace with it. There's so many other things that we could be blowing money on. I think this is,
Yeah, I mean, we the only other thing we do as a family is, my wife loves to take cruises. So every other year we'll take a family cruise, which is not cheap, obviously, but that's her vacation. That's her getaway. And she really mentally checks out, decompresses. So we said, okay, well, that's those memories that you build with the family obviously are important. And this is my hobby. This is where I spend, if I have money, I'll spend it here. But yeah, it's all about, I mean, I don't go crazy. Obviously, you have to look at budget. You want to go into debt, and then trying to figure out how to pay that off. Obviously, you have to be sensible. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any other vices. I mean, I don't drink, I don't gamble, and don't do anything. So this is where I spend any money I have.
Damn, I might be a little guilty of those two. Why'd you have to pick those two?
that's the one I see people blowing money on. So
yep. Well, that's funny.
Yeah.
Rob says, Scott, the one thing you have on us is you have a basement.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so people who have basements, they'll probably say, well, one thing we've got on them is we've got a suspended floor.
Yeah.
It just depends. There's pros and cons to both.
I was just going to say, Rob says you may make the house fall down with those 24-inch subs, Ray. Yeah, that's a good thing you bring about suspended floor, because we were just talking in the waiting room, before we went on live, about like how when I have people over and they listen to the RTJ stuff, they can't believe how much bass is from 418s, but it's on a suspended floor. Thing I like about the basement, though, is I can generally play louder, not bother my neighbors. If I was upstairs, I think that I would have a lot of issues. So, like with anything, it's give and take. There's pros and cons, to everything for sure. But yeah, the suspended floor thing is you can get a couple of subs to really start rocking a suspended floor. If you're on concrete, it takes so much.
Yeah. I mean, there's the downside of it, obviously, is you also get some resonances that you can control sometimes, especially when you're cranking it up. But there's pros and cons to both things. Especially in the basement, some of the crazy setups that we see in Kansas and Wisconsin is because there's a lot of space. You can kind of do what you need to do in there. And then I think it does add to this, maybe the cleanliness, punchiness of the bass, maybe. I don't know. It's really hard to do a A/B comparison with the exact size room, etc., to do that. But the suspended floor definitely translates into a lot of impact in TR coming through.
Yeah, Rob says ABTs in your backyard, Scott. Yeah, that is nice. ABT, not only do they work on their prices, they carry most of the stuff in stock. They're about an hour away, but that's an easy way to spend money. That's how I bought my projector. Because a lot of times you go to buy something like, oh, I'll have it to you in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 4 weeks. You're like, but when they're like, yeah, it's in stock, you can bring it home with you today. It makes it so much easier to spend money.
Certainly.
Well, let's welcome Youthman.
Hey, Michael.
Chat. We, man, speaking of Youthman, we got mwave coming up. Tell me you're not about that.
Man, that is just something I look forward to the entire year. When I came back from my first experience was in 2023. Loved it. First time meeting Michael there as well, and Jeff. You know how long I've been waiting to meet Jeff, and I kept missing him at your house. And I finally found him there. And the funny thing about that, well, I'll share, is everybody, as you say, knows me by Ray, right? The name's Imad, but everybody calls me Ray. And I said Jeff, Imad, but people call me Ray. He said, no, I'm going to call you Imad. I said, okay, well, I'm going to test by the end of the day if you remember my name. And sure enough, he did. I was very impressed. I mean, because it's not a common name, right? So people tend to forget it. That's why my friends started calling me Ray. They said, your first name is too hard, man. We'll just go with your last name, Rehman, Ray. Okay, you're Ray. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. Doesn't matter.
I can't stop thinking about you as Imad now after you told me the story about your wife.
That's what my wife calls me when she sees all these boxes coming in. That she said, you're Imad.
Yep.
So, you're welcome to call me because I am, I think, a little bit bad.
That's awesome. Man, so the lineup for you and Todd are both coming in wave this year, correct?
Yes, yes.
And you guys are gonna fly in Friday morning?
Yes, we probably arrived there around 10ish, 10:30 or something.
I mean, Cato getting in there Thursday night, so I'm sure we'll all be hanging out like we did last time. But that lineup this year is
It's awesome.
insane. Is insane. Leaps and bounds these guys are taking. I mean, to get Ascendo and Stereo Integrity and Germani, JT.
Oh yeah, that's
JTR.
awesome.
Oh, it's gonna be it's gonna be nuts. I'm gonna be like a kid in a candy store at that place. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm looking forward to that for sure. And it's actually it's on my birthday, so it's a hell of a way to celebrate your birthday.
Yeah.
At Wave.
What are you looking for? I know last year me and you were hanging out pretty much the whole time, and we were between the JTR and the Stereo Integrity room. What are you looking forward to this year?
I wanna listen to Ascendo if I can. I know it's probably really hard to get into Ryan's room, but whatever we have at M-Wave is what I probably just get a taste of in a different setup. I've heard Ascendo a little bit at Rob's place, but he doesn't have the infra subs yet, so didn't get a full taste of it yet. But yeah, that's what I'm curious about, and seeing Germani and Matt Pose, those guys, that'll be awesome. So definitely will look to attend some of their sessions.
I believe that Don Dunn might be coming too, because he put a post on somewhere. He goes, I'm going to finally see some GSG subs at M-Wave this year. So yeah, who knows? Yeah, but it'd be cool to meet Matt Pose, because I've talked with Matt Pose a handful of times, but never met him in person. Obviously, Germani is a big name in the business along with him, so it's certainly going to be a good time. And man, we're talking like we're like a month away, like 37 days or 38 days or something like that.
Yeah,
it's
roughly. Yeah.
I had to get ready for 60 people at my house, and I was biting my nails for that. These guys getting ready for like 500 people. That's that's insanity.
For sure. That's Germani. As you can see, it's on this side actually. You can see that's his treatments from Germani's Sonitus USA, which I painted with a spray foam friendly spray paint. Yeah. So yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. So looking forward to seeing those guys.
I see the guys everybody's chatting in the chat that Youthman just got home from Louisiana. Did you see that setup?
I did. Awesome, man. Awesome.
That guy's home theater is like the size of my house.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to that full video from Michael. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit, Ray, because we all kind of went on a tangent here.
Yeah, we went on a wave.
Yeah, and that's how it is every time when we go live, because I try to talk with everybody in the chat and we just kind of bounce around. But so you let us know who Ray is outside of the hobby. So what got you into the hobby? Like, what's some of your earliest memories, or what was the attraction? Because obviously I'm attracted to the hobby. Obviously, that's why I'm in it. But like, what was it for you that's like, man, that's where I need to be?
Yeah, it's funny that if I go to the earliest memories of this is car audio. When I was a student back home, I'm originally from Pakistan. Been here, most of my life now. But even then, when I was 13, 14 years old in the car, I replaced the original manufacturer stereo with a one that was aftermarket, really really high end one, and it's the bass, right? Bass and the sound quality is something that I've always appreciated, kind of chased for. Even in my home there, it was a boombox, but a very high end boombox. Just something I had always kind of just intrigued me, and I really appreciated it. So as I kind of came here, went to college. We actually had a band in college, as a student band, right? We used to perform on student nights and some festivals, etc. So I was always kind of acoustically inclined, right? I had a very good ear for an appreciation of music and musicality, but I didn't appreciate what a bass head I was till I started experiencing true bass, right? Which was when we get into the journey part of it. I'll share sort of till you have not heard it, experienced it, you don't know what you're missing, right? So sometimes ignorance is bliss, but then you are, missing out on some good stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff I've just learned to, learn about myself over the years as to what I like and what I value. Yeah, always had a sort of a sharp ear for anything audio, but bass is something I've always had an addiction for. So that's sort of how I started getting into the hobby. But the biggest thing that got me into the hobby was um, signing up for ABS forum and interacting with people and getting to connect with folks on there and building some relationships and checking out other theaters, etc., which I'll share with you in more detail here.
It, there's a lot of bass heads in the home
Yes.
theater group. I think just because of the excitement that the low frequency adds, and as a lot of us have worked our way through these systems as car guys and home theater guys, and it certainly is a chase for that car. It's so easy to pressurize a car, but then once you
Yes.
start moving into a room, and we all took stepping stones to get where we're at. So for the people that don't know, I mean, Ray's room is another one of the over the top rooms. You want to just, I mean, everybody can obviously, you have two specials out on your room now, but I mean, you got 15s, 21s, 24s. You just kind of want to explain to everybody how you ended up that way and exactly why that combination.
Yeah, I'll tell you sort of how this journey evolved, if that's okay. Because you don't jump into this straight away, and maybe I should have, but I value the journey and the learning experience that I've had over time. So it's taken me, like I was saying on Jordan's video, it's been a journey, right? I moved twice. The second move was because I wanted a media room, dedicated media room, because I was in a living area. But I was in that living area. I was happy with the Samsung home theater in a box, and I just didn't like the sound coming out of the TV, so I just bought something to amplify the TV sound. But I happened to get introduced to a guy who had a very entry level SVS setup in his living room, and the SVS subs are pretty good subs. He had a PB12 NSD, and that's real bass, right? Coming from a HDIB to a PB12 NSD. I heard low frequency bass for the first time. I'm like, oh my god, that is something that I really really like, got a taste for, and that's sort of what started kick me through this journey. Then I started with a SVS PC12 NSD and SCS LRC SVS LRC as well, and AVR 1909, and this was in this very room. This room did not look like this before. It was this room exactly was dimension wise is exactly how the builder built it, but it was light colored, with a light color carpet. I had this right in this corner. I had a SVS PC12 NSD sitting there, and I was sitting exactly in the same place where I sit today. And I was very, very happy. This was a big step up for me. I had no idea about RDW, frequency response, setup, calibration, whatever. And then, as I joined ABS Forum, I learned a little bit about this. I spent a lot of time, to be honest, Scott. I can tell you that just learning and understanding, the influences of your room on your sound, what can be achieved in your room, room construction as it relates to, do you have a concrete wall on this side, a hollow wall on this side, whatever, and how that influences sound. So learning that over the years has really allowed me to kind of incrementally build my system. I've tried seal subs in here, had Seaton submersives after the SVS. That was actually a great step up, but unfortunately, the reason I traded out of those is they had this older speaker power 2400 watt amplifiers, and they're very inefficient, those ones, and they started tripping my breaker. So I ended up returning those because the at that point when I called the electrician, it was quite a long way to go address that. So I just said, I'm just going to return them, and I moved to ported subs, PSA V1801s, and I really enjoyed the balance of the ported subs. Till I went to Todd's room. Todd had just recently bought 2400 ULFs. I didn't know Todd at that time, so I connected. I saw on the JTR thread somebody in Houston was buying these. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, when they come in, can I come and look at your, just hear them out? And that was obviously a mistake, because when I went in there and I demoed some of the most common scenes. Like the big one for me, the game changer for me was the Incredible Hulk. You know, when he's chasing after the guy, those footsteps when he's
Mm-hmm.
chasing that guy. I had never heard those footsteps, right? I haven't felt them the way I felt it with the JTR ULFs. So that started my quest for a low tune sub. I was missing a pretty much an octave, low octave on the low end with the PSAs. And around that time, we also had the Houston get together. It was hosted by Todd and myself and a couple other guys. So in that, Brian Ding brought the FV18's paper cones. It was a new sub that Brian was introducing. He brought that over. I took my PSA and there was some DIY in there. And that allowed us to do some comparisons. JTR obviously took the cake because it filled the 7,000 cubic feet of room pretty easily, and the FE18 came in second. So Brian was nice enough to let me try that sub out. Jeff also sent me some 118 HDs and a Cap 1400. So I did some lot of comparisons, ABs. They weren't blind. I'll tell you that, but there were comparisons in the same room with the same equipment. And I don't know if you knew a guy by the name of Mark Alexander. He used to be around, very knowledgeable guy. He's not on the forums active anymore, but very, very knowledgeable guy. He was here. He came to my room, helped me dial things in, make sure that we were doing A/B testing appropriately. And I just heard that some nuances in depth in the FV18's texture of the bass that I hadn't heard on the other subs. So I think one of the things I learned, Scott, is that how important calibration is, because that 1400 Cap 1400 sounded horrible in my room. Right, it was just mudding my center channel. Right, I couldn't hear it. It was sound very boomy, and I blamed it on the high excursion driver, not knowing anything better. Right, I said, yes, the high excursion driver probably doesn't, it's not a good fit for my room, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the Cap 1400 went back, the 118 HDs went back. I had the FV18 for a while, and I was very, very happy with them. They're really, really great subs, by the way. Till I actually then came to your room, Scott, and I got to experience the power of the Cap 4 or 4Ks. I know you have a lot of them. And I think at that time we had 5 when I came the first time. But there again, similar experience. I heard things impact that I had not appreciated from the FV18s. So I had always had an admiration for the Cap 4K. So I just ended up getting a ST, Cap 4K ST. It integrated really well with the FV18s. I ran there for a while. I actually tried very near field with the Cap, and that sort of got me addicted to very near field, because I think the impact of that sub is just awesome in a near field capacity. So this was not intentional, but I then found myself hanging out in the DIY section. I don't know why I went there, but I saw a picture of the carbon fiber 24-inch StereoIntegrity driver, and I absolutely fell in love with the driver. I was like, man, it would be really nice to be able to look at this driver, right, facing you in your room. And so I just, casually started talking to guys about what's possible. How would you go about getting a cabinet? How would you amplify it? And UI is a different world. How would I get amplification? How would I connect it? So a lot of conversations, a lot of learning in there, a lot of super guys that I talked to. Mike Basunas being one of them, who actually built the cabinets for me. Talked to him, Jonathan, a lot of guys that are common friends here. Talked to them about this, but I sat on it for a while before we did this, because I didn't want to give up the Cap and sell the Cap and then regret about selling the Cap, and because I'm not feeling the same impact. So I did not sell the Cap till I actually got the cabinets and the drivers into my room, and I did some comparisons, and I just felt that the 24 sealed were giving me a little bit more. I'd say they were interacting with the room a bit less. I think the Cap was just creating a havoc in my room. It's got so much low end boost to it that it was. I thought it was resonating in my room a bit more than even the 24s were. So as I was having these conversations, I said, I'm going to go all out this time. I'm going to get 4 24s. And I'm going to get also some pro drivers to leave nothing on the table about missing mid bass or whatever, even though there's nothing lacking in the 24s themselves from StereoIntegrity. They're they're very good drivers even in the mid bass region. But pro audio is pro audio, so I went with the Eminence NSW21s for that. And Mike made the cabinets for that as well. So Mike did a fantastic job with the cabinets. They're so solid. There's no, nothing vibrating, nothing that I felt that, the cabinet is resonating with all these high excursion drivers. So I sold, actually, the funny thing is I sold the CAF 4K to Todd, actually. The one who introduced me to JTR, he actually bought the CAF from me. So he's running a CAF 4K with his 2400 ULFs now. And it's obviously he's having a blast with it. But you can see there's incremental testing, feeling it out, and at the same time, I've also upgraded my speakers from the SVS to PSA, and then to JTR's 212 RTs. And I tell you, the speakers have had just as much impact in the whole audio experience in this room than as much as the subs have had. And I would, if I ever, I might do something with the subs, but I can't see me going anywhere different than with the JTRs speaker wise. So that's sort of the journey I went through, Scott, as why I ended up in the way where I ended up. Some of this was just, superficial aesthetics that caused me to go to StereoIntegrity because I'd never heard of them. And I was concerned. If you the reason remember, we were in mwave, we were going back and forth to StereoIntegrity because the drivers were waiting on the cabinet sitting in my garage. And when I went into mwave, I just didn't hear any texture in the bass. It was very one notey, and I'm like, oh my god, is this how the driver's going to sound? This is going to be a problem. But it was more about the room, the setup, and everything else.
Yeah, it was definitely with just a setup issue. Mike's actually in the chat. The guy that built your boxes, he just popped in the chat too to say hey to everybody.
Yeah. Mike's a cool cat, man. Really super nice guy and very knowledgeable. He spent so much time working with me because as you will see if you look at the video that Jordan did, every single inch is occupied by subwoofers here in the front end, especially, right? So custom dimensions that Mike and I worked out to make sure it was the right volume, get the most performance out of the subs. He went overboard with the bracing to make sure there was no cabinet resonance or anything of that sort happening. So Mike did a fantastic job, modeling and kind of working this out with me. So I don't think I'm done with Mike yet, though, because we've been talking about something else at this point. So we'll see what happens. He did
some Mark that's in the chat as well. He did some near field subs for him too, and I checked him out from head to toe. I mean, attention to detail for sure. Mike's work looks just like a professional commercial.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Put him out, no doubt. So it's all top tier work from him for sure.
For sure. No, so yeah, I mean, it all came together. Connecting with Mike obviously helped kind of answer all the questions about how this was all going to work. And then I had a couple of buddies when the drivers were here. There's no way I was going to load these drivers by myself into the cabinets. So Jeff Mary and another guy, Daryl, came over and helped me kind of put these drivers in and set them up. Unfortunately, we couldn't tune. Jeff wasn't able to tune it because we had some clicking coming through the Flex 8 and the CVR amps. So that day he couldn't do it. So I was on my own sort of to set these up and calibrate, which is good learning because having this many different type of drivers located in different locations was a good experience to kind of set this up and calibrate.
Well, yeah, which kind of brings us to our next point, because now you're because I know you've been helping people with setups and calibrations and stuff for some time now, but you're even taking that a step further, that you're offering services, paid services now to people that have, you do anything from a basic calibration to a complex calibration. Anything except for like a Trinov or anything you're pretty much handling right now, right?
Yeah. So the reason I started going into this was, as I said, a lot of my friends and my wife especially were saying, I lost my job with BP after working 20 plus years in October. All right. So my wife said, you've got all these times in your hands. You're obviously applying for jobs, but you're going to drive yourself crazy, right? You've never sat at home since you started your career. So why don't you take this hobby? You can probably, fund your hobby through this and get, make some money as well on the side, but it'll keep you occupied more than the money, right? It's not going to pay my rent, but it'll keep you occupied and busy, and it's something you love. So why don't you just start doing it? And I've talked to a lot of folks about this. There is still a lot of misinformation out there, and with the advent and of social media, there's a lot of information, but there's a lot of misinformation as well out there. And Jeff and I, as I mentioned, Jeff, Mary, and I are pretty good friends, and he and I have talked about this. And I said, if there's something like that's out of my realm, because Trinov is not something everybody can calibrate. For example, if something comes my way and query that way, I'm going to send them to you. And if you have somebody who's looking for, using RW Mini DSP, has Denon Marantz, which is most or any other AVR type, processor, then you send them my way if you're not interested in doing them, because Jeff goes in person, so it's quite expensive, right, for to fly him out there. So so that's what kind of started me going down this route. I said, you know what, I'll give it a crack, and people can reach out to me. I've even seen, not naming any names, but I was at a friend's house, and somebody who's known for calibrations was doing the calibration. I was just seeing how they were being done. I was like, man, that is just, getting a flat line is one thing, but how you get to that flat line, if you're using excessive filters and stuff like that, that's something that, people just don't sometimes realize about what's being done to the system. They don't understand it. It's not explained to them. And then, the other thing I try to do is making sure not just the subwoofer calibration, but how that integrating with your speakers. For me personally, the biggest impact I was able to make when I was, as I started learning calibration stuff for myself, was the aligning the impulse responses of the speakers to the subs. That has made such a big difference, Scott. And I think a lot of people just miss that point. People are just focused on getting a flat line of the subs, but the integration of your speakers to your subs is equally important, and that just brings that cohesiveness and tightness right to the sound. But yeah, so that's what got me started, and the timing was such. I was like, I had time on my hands. Fortunately, I have landed a job, but with Cisco Foods here in end of January. But I said, if I can help folks, they can reach out to me. I'll definitely, I still consult on the side if people reach out to me on system recommendations, equipment recommendations, whatever. I still do that. But yeah, that's sort of how I stepped into this. It's kind of was peer, pressure from family, friends. Say, hey, why don't you start doing something? I'm like, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, because I know there's always people looking, because especially if you're new into this hobby, it could be, I mean, what we take or we talk about, is a foreign language to a newcomer, and it can be so much, and people drop so much money on a lot of cool stuff, but they're only getting half of its potential if it's not set up. I can't tell you how many times somebody has come to me and be like, I'm just going to buy another sub. I'm like, well, why are you going to buy another sub? I'm just not happy with the performance. So have you calibrated? No, I just got a bunch of Y connectors, and I'm like, man, you can make 2 subs sound like 4 subs. You could. What I think, honestly, is and I've shown people many times in person on my system, is that if you throw off a delay, or if you just take, say, delay, say if you just put a bunch of subs together, is that adding a 3rd or 4th sub can actually hurt your performance.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, you can lose, 5-10 dB at certain frequencies by, these subs all fight against each other. It's all about making everything work together, and it's through programming and through microphones and seeing. It's fun to watch it all just come together, and then you took what looked like a real shitty graph, and when you're done, not only does it look good, but it just sounds. I mean, a calibrated system any day, man, is a game changer. That I'd say calibration, room treatments, and near field subwoofers are probably my top 3.
Absolutely agree with you, and that's sort of made the biggest difference for me in this room. The one thing, though, people talk about, I think you get the same comments, I get the same comments. Well, that's too much subwoofer for a room this size, right? So the benefit of having, you don't have to go over the top. I mean, we probably are over the top, but the access in that sense is good, because that allows you headroom, right? you can then EQ things that you would not have been able to EQ. You can always turn things down if you don't want to hear too loud. But the fidelity that comes in with headroom, right? I think is something that is very misunderstood as well. So I can at this point I've got so much headroom. I can EQ this however way I want it, right? Flat graph, upside down, whatever you want to do, without stressing out my equipment. Jordan was here. We were cracking up a curtain shaker. I mean, these drivers were knocking it out without stressing out, right? He never even my NSWs, they're pro audio drivers, right? But none of the subs are working hard. And that's just the factor of having headroom. So I would say, if you think you need 2 subs, go with 3 or 4, because that benefit that you're going to get from having spare headroom is just going to add to the quality of the sound that you're getting.
Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing over here. I'm switching you out, switching me out. That's why I say that. I am the rusted out El Camino of YouTube channels, so I don't want people to get spoiled with the professional production over here.
Yeah,
and like it's the same thing. I get the comment all the time. It's too much for the room. My biggest thing was, and I'm sure you went through this and a lot of other guys too, is I would literally give a demo, or I would watch a movie clip, or I'd listen to music, and I'd have to go around afterwards and say, man, did I blow a sub? Did I blow a woofer? Did I blow a tweeter? And there were a lot of cases that I did, like with the Clips THX Ultra system. I blew tweeters fairly often. I blow a sub. And I was like, man, I want to be the limiting factor in my system. Like, well, that was a little too much. I need to calm down.
Right.
And it takes a long time to build. Like you said, you've been on a journey for years, me as well. It's just, I really just wanted something that if I wanted a lot of low hertz bass, that I could just have it to my heart's content.
Yeah. And to be honest, I was lucky enough that I could bring whatever power I wanted to in this room. But the experience I had with the submersives, with the breaker tripping, I didn't ever want to think about that again, right? I said, if I'm going to have this much sort of firepower in the room, I gotta get the appropriate power. Lucky enough to get the very it didn't quite cost me too much because of how my panel is situated in compared to where my room is. But I'm running these subs on 2 dedicated 30 amp breakers running on a 220 line. Right, and I'm powering 2 CBR amps. Both of them push. So it's 4-channel amp. I've got 2 of those, and each of them is pushing like 3,500 watts per channel into 4 ohms. Right, so that's some serious power coming in. But again, because I've set it up the way through the 30 amp breakers, I don't have to worry about them powering off or tripping my breaker or anything like that. But it makes a difference, right? It becomes to a point where the cleanliness of the sound it becomes very important when you're especially trying to get some enjoyment of your system. And we've cranked this up, similar to yours, Scott. We cranked it up pretty high, over reference. Never did it sound like it's something was distorting speakers, whatever. So another thing, we could go crazy on subs, but you have to have speakers also that can keep up with your subs. That's another thing I love about the JTRs is they'll easily keep up with pretty much any sub that you have out there. You don't want to be your bass is overwhelming your speakers. So if you've got really mini bookshelves and you've got 4K 4Ks, then you're probably going to have an issue there. That's
That's probably a good question for you here, Ray.
Yeah.
Paul says, I'm interested in having someone calibrate my system. I have a mini DSP, good mic, and RU, but I just don't really get it nor enjoy doing it. Well, there is a learning curve. I mean, it's very overwhelming, for sure, to just hop right into it. So, I mean, Paul, that's pretty much what Ray's talking about. That those are the exact services he offers. He's very fluent with the mini DSP, and if you want to reach out to Ray, you can. His banner right here. All your contact info is on your webpage, right, Ray?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just go to expertsoundpro.com and you can probably just shoot him an email or something, and you guys can discuss plan of attack and rates and all that stuff. So
absolutely, yeah, sure.
I'm used to having Kat with me because it's hard for me to talk to my guests and go through the chat. I hate leaving people hanging in the chat because everybody takes time out of their night. Mike says, I've blown every sub I've owned. Now, this is my kind of comment.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm babying my new ones until I can jump into the GSG JTR category. What are the ones you're babying? What's your new subs, Mike?
Yeah.
Kat somewhere in here said no more subwoofer. She must have been talking to you, Ray. She would never talk to me like that. How many 240 circuits do you have down there, Scott? Right now I got 9 240 volt leads coming into this room.
Yeah, you need those with those caps, man.
Yeah. A lot of good. Well, same thing like you is the worst thing for me is to have a demo. That's the only thing I don't like about the RTJ setup, because when we redid that,
yeah, I remember that.
is if I go too high, I blow the 20 amp breaker on the upstairs system.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do about that.
Yeah.
Rob, Scott, I saw pictures room. I think you need one more JTR sub for an even 10. You know, Rob, but I when I did that, I thought, man, 1818s just sounded good. So that's why I went with 9. And I don't know. The last sub I bought, I had to sneak into Kat's purse and steal her debit card. I don't know if I can pull that off again.
We've been talking about telling you to give, you have space for 5 more. The way we calculated it, stacking them all around except the front.
Yeah, you know, if it was a little cheaper, that might be a little bit more fun.
For sure.
Oh, budget price mono 15s. Hey man, but that's
those are,
you're doing all right, man.
Yeah.
You don't got to baby those. Might crank those up, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, Scott, whatever they got whatever they got to say about mono price, but I tell you what, to grab 15s or dual 15s for like $1,600 for that dual 15 that goes on sale a lot. That's not a bad deal, man. So I've heard a couple of their subs. They put out good bass.
Yeah, I've seen the mono 16 down to like $1,400.
Yeah.
That's a beast. That subwoofer. So yeah,
they were definitely calling out SVS, I believe, when they released that one.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard that sub. It's got that thickish tonality to it that we like in the JTR subs.
Yeah.
So it's a beast of a sub. If you can get it at that price, even if you blow it down the road, that's a heck of a price for that sub. I tell you that.
He said these are their $300 15s.
Oh,
I didn't know mono price had $300 15s.
$300 15s.
If I was fancy like the Youthman YouTube channel, I could Google that up and bring that up on the screen.
Is that 15 millimeters or 15 centimeters? Is that a 15 inches?
Yeah.
I've never seen those.
The SW15.
Oh, okay. I know what he's talking about. It's a different line. It's an entry level. It's outside of the monolith. It's not a monolith.
Okay.
So,
all right. When he said it, I was thinking of that like $700 or $800 15 that they have like 1,000.
Yeah. No. That's okay. I know what he's talking about. Okay. Yeah, that one he could blow. I can see that.
So obviously your room has went through quite a few changes over the last couple of years, and now that you're not only a hobbyist, but you're getting into it as like a service. What are you personally? What have you seen, and now that you're helping other people out, what is something that you see that is overlooked fairly often? Like for the people that are new in here, just building a room or just getting into the hobby, what is something that's often overlooked, you feel?
I think the most often fundamental thing I think that's overlooked is understanding your room, right? People need to understand what they are, you need to understand your room construction as well, sort of how it's built, sort of dimensions, and what impact that'll influence your ability to kind of get the equipment in there, what type of equipment is going to work. So I think understanding your room, and then also, what gear is going to work in there, because placement is going to be key, right? So if I have, the reason I've got the 24s, my front 24s in a certain dimension is because that allows the most appropriate placement for them in the front. If I went with a different dimension cabinet, I probably would have had to put them in a non-optimal place. So I think just understanding, what your room will allow, what is the best performing gear you can get in that room, what your goals are, and then room treatments. I think that was a learning for me, is how much of an impact the treatments have. And I've continued to add as I've kind of learned how the diffusion and absorption kind of work together. That's been something I've added over time. The most recent addition I did on my ceiling that I think you'll see in Jordan's video, that was maybe just a couple of months ago. So, as you learn, you experiment. If I didn't, hear a difference, or it was a measurable difference and I couldn't hear it, then I'll probably take it off. It's probably not worth it. But I think at this point, in my experience, people are, like you said, Scott, before you jump into adding more gear, I think you need to kind of understand, is it optimally placed? What are your listening habits, right? You need to kind of understand your own preferences and choices. Just because you have a near field sub or a JTR sub, everybody doesn't need to have a JTR sub or a near field sub. It just depends on your how you can situate them and what your preferences are. So I think there's like 4 or 5 big things that I come across usually. And people sometimes have some unrealistic expectations as well, right? From one sub that's sitting in a corner, and they're just saying, I'm just not feeling the chest impact. I'm like, you're never going to feel it from one 15-inch sub sitting in a corner in a 3,000 square foot room, right, or cubic feet room. So I think just understanding your room and your circumstances, I think, is a leading factor.
I think definitely reasonable expectations too, because obviously we both get a lot of comments and messages from people. It's funny because I'll be laying in bed at night and kid like, oh my God, who are you messaging now? And it's literally just people asking nonstop about subwoofers and stuff like that. But people, I don't care, I'm just happy that there's people in the hobby and that they're happy. But I think realistic expectations, like, if you go to Best Buy and buy a $300 or $400 Klipsch 12-inch sub, and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling that in my chest, it's a very unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, the only way to feel something from that in your chest would be to have it in your lap right here, right?
Yeah.
So then you'll feel it. But it's one of the things, and it's not for me to judge anybody's budgets and all that, but then you have to kind of tailor your expectations accordingly.
Yeah.
And for some, if you're happy with it, like I was happy with the home theater in a box for a long time, right? It's just when you start understanding and you say, oh, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this, and I didn't know what I liked till I start experiencing something different than what I was used to.
And this is a piece of advice for everybody. If you are blown away by your home theater setup, shut off your internet and never go visit anybody else's room.
or ABS forum, sign out.
Because I was so blown away with the Klipsch THX Ultra system for years, and then I went to a buddy's house that had SVS subs, and then I filled my whole room with SVS subs, like 7 of them. Then I went to a PowerSound audio room. Then I filled my room with that. Then I went to a JTR room, and then I filled my whole room. And if you're happy, just shut yourself out from the outside world, man. It's a lot cheaper, and you're going to get tired of lugging all these big ass speakers up and down your stairs. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's another thing is just, and when people are considering budgets, I would suggest, just like now, when you're buying a house, just I would say just test your budget a little bit, right? If you can push it a little bit more, right, to get to a next level sub, let's say, or equipment, I would say go for it, because that might keep you a bit longer content longer from upgrading, and just go in for the expectation that if you're thinking you need, your budget is 2,000, it'll be 3.5, probably. That's where you'll end up. So, but it's all about expectations and constraints and budgets. So I think people get disappointed when they have unrealistic expectation from their equipment. And if you've got good equipment and it's not, the other side of this is, if it's not calibrated and your room is not treated, you haven't done that kind of stuff, then yes, you could be unhappy with your equipment, but that's not the equipment's fault. It's just because it's not tuned, it's not set up to perform, appropriately.
You could certainly take a cheaper room with a great calibration. Will be a much better experience than $1 million room with no calibration. You know, and that's just the reality of it. Is at certain points, just throwing more money at it isn't going to fix it.
Yeah.
Rob was asking earlier in the chat. I didn't mean to skip over your question, Rob, for Ray. Tell us about how much power you have in your room, Ray. So maybe like how much power you bring into the room, or then maybe how much power amplifiers you're running. I think he's asking.
Yeah, I mean, most of my power is really going towards the subs, right? I mean, for the LCRs, these are the JTR 212 RTs, 101 dB sensitive, right? So they don't need a lot of power. But I still am running a base X3 with pushes 200 watts per channel to them. But there's no, I mean, I'm not pushing anywhere close to their capabilities. Other than that, processor-wise, it's just a Denon 4700. But for the subwoofers, as I said, I've got two CBR G2004 amps, and they each do 3,500 watts per channel. So each of my drivers are basically getting that much power, and those are running on their own 30 amp breaker on a 220 line. Other than that, nothing more. But I've got a bunch in that room that I have. I've got a bunch of other 20 amp circuits that are unused. And if I decide to add more subs, I'll probably buy an amplifier that doesn't require a NEMA plug. just a regular plug in the wall type stuff. But I do have an NX4 6000 that's sitting unused. So either Crosons or some more near fields or something that I'm trying to figure that out with Mike at the moment.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night, and it was funny that we came on for 5 minutes last night to test audio and video. We ended up chatting for 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah.
That's something else with this hobby, man. Does time just flies by. If you're chatting about it or trying to enjoy it or tune something, it just flies by. Rob says he's saving for a 32-inch infrasonic sub. Can't fit the 50 in his room.
Well. Yeah. I mean, Rob and I've been talking. I mean, I'd say you don't go for a 24, go for a 32 if you can. If you're gonna stay in the Ascendo line, otherwise, you could add up, put some 2 or 3 StereoIntegrity 24s in the back for that for the same money or less money actually.
This was certainly Kat that put this. I have a sub with my sound bar. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mike says, I bought a pair of those SW15s, but you can't hear them over the old Valdyne I have. Should be better when my mini DSP comes in. Hey, man, Valdyne back in the day, that used to... My first real sub was a Valdyne DD18. I mean, that was my first taste of, like, 10 hertz performance. And, yeah, I mean... I know Valdyne's had a lot of ups and downs, and who knows who owns them now or what they're doing. But I see they're trying to make a comeback. But 15 years ago, Valdyne was certainly a go-to. Yeah.
I mean, this is the point that Mike is raising. This is what I was saying earlier: is your speakers have to be able to keep up with your subwoofers, right? So you don't want to go to an extreme where you've got really extreme subwoofers, but you're running them with bookshelves. I think that it'll not be a balanced system. You want to make sure your system is balanced, right, to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, and a lot of that, too, for the people that don't know, like when you're running calibration and stuff like that, and you integrate them together, as you can see in real time, how all that's coming together. And exactly what you see is in an uncalibrated setup or in a mismatched setup, you can see where the subs certainly rule, and then the mains are having a terrible time of keeping up.
Exactly.
And then that's, like we were just talking, is that's where the inaccuracy comes in, the muddiness, and the tightness kind of goes away.
Yeah, and Scott, one thing on this from a calibration standpoint, I've been running 100 hertz crossover for all my speakers for a long time, right? Just because it looked the best, sort of from a frequency response perspective. However, as I've added room treatments and did impulse response alignments of my speakers to my subs, I've actually dropped it down to 80 hertz. And what that has allowed me to experience now is I'm feeling and I'm hearing that the bass is now distributed more evenly. Otherwise, if I do an A-B flip between 100 hertz, 80 hertz, 100 hertz, 80 hertz, in the 100 hertz now, what I'm hearing is that the bass is more concentrated in the subwoofers. 80 is allowing the bass to be spread out. And I've got pretty capable, as I said, my fronts are 212 RTs and HDR.
And those are good down to what, 30 hertz, 35 hertz,
35 hertz.
Yeah.
Then I've got for the side surrounds, I've got JTR 110 HDs, PSA 110s, and Atmos. I've got SCS 8s. They all can do, even the SCS can do easily down to 70 hertz, right? So I have the capacity, capability in my speakers to actually reproduce bass from where it's originating from. So I've lowered the crossovers down 80 on my fronts and 90 on my surrounds and Atmos, and it has made a difference in the cohesiveness and just spreading out the bass. But this is something, again, I continue to tweak and learn, and as you improve upon these your calibrations and things of that sort, and sometimes your taste also change over time. So I feel right now my system is probably sounding as best as it has in a long ever, I think. And just having some dudes over and Jordan over and having them demo it, people who've been to other rooms as well, who can sort of appreciate what certain rooms sound like. It's all been very good feedback so far.
Got another question for you here, Ray. Appreciate everybody stopping by, hanging out in the chat. What do we? Oh, sorry. Thanks for reverse. I told my wife that you said to push my budget a little bit. She already thinks I need counseling. That's awesome. That wasn't what I yeah. Ray offers counseling services on the side too of how to convince your wife.
Yeah, I can have my wife talk to her.
Yeah,
she'll just say, "Let's leave him alone. Just let him do his stuff." Yeah,
I'm looking for somebody had a question for you about vaulted ceilings. And now where the heck did that go? Oh, here we go. Paul was asking. He was the one that was asking about calibration.
Yeah.
He said his vaulted ceiling. How does that affect things? It helps with my top back in ceiling speakers. So from a calibration point of view, I mean, I think he's asking, is that more difficult? Is there compromises that need to be made with that?
Yeah, I think it depends sort of what is the height of that ceiling and what kind of speakers do you have all around and on the for Atmos. It just depends on a few factors. I think there's quite a few variables in that, Paul, to be honest.
Yeah, because I believe like with the vaulted ceilings and excessive ceiling heights, I mean, that's where a lot of like distance settings where you can really tie all that in, right? Just because
I mean, it's not necessarily a negative. It's not necessarily a negative. I think it just depends on what's his total sort of what else is he running with them, and if it's a 12-foot ceiling, 13-foot ceiling, and
yes, I definitely think, Paul, what he's getting at is it's certainly still a very good probability that system can be tuned and calibrated. It's just each room is very unique, and that's why just a standard out of the box calibration is what a lot of us start out with. But when you make that step to a more custom calibration, especially to your room and your gear and your speakers, that's when it makes it it just takes you to that next level.
Yeah.
We got Tango from Denmark checking in. I think it's like 3 a.m. out there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He's been a big supporter since day one. Certainly appreciate that. Also, one of our Patreon members. Hey, I just dropped some new stuff, Tango, on the Patreon channel if you haven't checked it out yet. Rob says, Scott, I bought a pair of validating HGS subs from Tweeter at Woodfield when they went out of business. I had them up until about 3 years ago. Hey, man, I used to go to Tweeter all the time, and the little guys, the Rotel lamps that I have, I bought 12 years ago from the little guys. So find you a wife that's as understanding as Kat. It didn't start out that way. As a new couple, and we've been together 13 years now. But when she knew what she was getting herself into. When she met me, I had speakers stacked floor, I had Sherwin Vega horns stacked floor to ceiling, and a stack of Crown amps as tall as I was. It's just once you start getting kids in a home together, and it is an expensive hobby, but over the years, she's cool as shit about everything now. So it's just it's a lot, I think, for anybody when they see how much this stuff costs. When you get outside of like the stuff in Best Buy and stuff like that, the really, really fun stuff, for a lot of us is a bigger purchase, and I can understand why some spouses don't support it. I couldn't personally have that kind of negativity in my life.
Man, exactly. I mean,
I just lost 3 subscribers. No.
Yeah, no, my wife puts up with it. As I was saying, she puts up with it. I think she's appreciated that, this is what she thinks that. She asks me if she sees me on a Friday night sitting around in the living room. She says, "Why are you not upstairs?" I think she wants to get me out from there.
Yeah.
For a long time. Yeah, we've been married for 28 years, so
I know when I'm not wanted.
yeah, I can tell. I said, I'm going.
Yeah.
And then she'll say, by the way, I can't hear the TV downstairs. So I've actually got a little subwoofer in a Definitive Technology Supercube down there. Even down there, I've got to have a subwoofer everywhere. In my game room, there's a subwoofer, small subwoofers. But without bass, man, there's no life without bass. I'm telling you.
I'm 100% with you. Hey, somebody has a good name for your new business, Ray. I like.
I read that. Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I said.
So we got Ray's audio and wife acceptance factor tuning.
Yeah.
accepted by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. There you go, man. That's great. 4. Oh yeah, Denmark. 4 a.m., buddy. My chickens are
7 hours
for food.
Yeah.
Hey, Lawrence, what's up, buddy, man? Thanks for joining in on the chat. We got Lawrence in the house now. The little guys got me hooked with one of their demos. I've had Lawrence over at the house before. Maybe we had a good time. Yeah, the little, I obviously, the brick and mortar stores where you could go in and check out all this cool gear are now so few and far between. But I think a lot of us have some really good memories. I mean, I remember going into some stores and just listening to stacks of Macintosh gear and just be like, man, one day I want something cool like that. Everything's on the internet now, or you got to go to a buddy's house to check it out. But I miss some of those high-end boutique stores for sure. Denmark says, Cat is just a perfect wife. I'm thinking of asking Scott if I can get a clone. Hey, man, I wouldn't mind cloning her either. I need one of them to mow the lawn. JD, the expert hour. It's a little late for me. Got to be up at 4. It's been a fun tonight. Hey, JD, thanks for stopping by, man. I know we're just running over an hour. I try to keep these around an hour. Got 1 or 2 more topics to touch with Ray, and then we will actually be wrapping up our Friday night as well. So, another question for you, Ray. Your calibrations, are you offering these in person, remotely? How exactly are you approaching your calibrations? Do you like if somebody just reached out to you now and says, man, my room's a mess, I need you to fix this?
Yeah, so most of them are going to be remote, because depending on where the person is. But if they're local here in the Houston area, or driving distance, then we could do on site as well. But most of them, I see them being remote type calibrations.
You're located out of Houston, correct?
I am in Houston, yes.
So so anybody interested with like a 4-hour, 3-hour driving distance of you, that's something, a service you would be willing to offer?
Yes.
Okay. So that's certainly cool too. And I just seen your question popped up too, Chester. Certainly trying to get everybody's questions. Taking the speakers out of the equation as a limiting situation, really speaking of height speakers, what frequency range should you really look at for Atmos tops and heights? What do you think, Ray? I kind of have an idea on my general rule of thumb. What's your thoughts, since you've calibrated a few setups already?
Yeah, I think where things are trending these days, and just future proofing. I mean, if it was possible for all of us, we would probably hang towers right from the ceilings, but we can't do that. But so my bias has been that if they can do anywhere 80, 90 hertz and above, I think that's a good place to be. Usually that's why you're crossing over as well, right? To your subs. So I think to be able to get some impact out of your Atmos from a bass, like, and then you have an explosion, let's say on you're hearing it from here. You want your speaker to be able to handle some of the bass frequencies. So to me, I've tried to stay at a speaker that can do 80, 90 and above. But again, it's personal preference. The one I have, they don't go down to 70 hertz, and I can, like I said, I can tell the difference when there's something action scene happening, even like if it's chopper blades or something like that. If your speaker is capable to produce that, then definitely that will help. And who knows, in the future, whenever art comes out, having sort of speakers that can go down to 60, 70, 80 hertz will probably help in that space. I don't know what your experience has been, Scott.
No, that's kind of how I feel too. It's like the one lacking in my system, because the cost is obviously an issue for everybody, is my in-ceiling clips. They're fine to like 80 or 90 hertz, and I actually have them crossed over at 90. But some point this summer, I'm going to switch over to the RTJ in ceilings, and then I'll drop that down a little bit more. But I certainly feel the same way, as I want to push as much bass to my other channels as I can, just because it is more lifelike. It is more realistic to have the speakers do the job that they're capable of doing, because so much bass gets sent to all of the channels. You don't have to have every piece of bass going to the subwoofers. My front stage isn't as capable as yours. And if I would do my front stage exactly the same way, by how you're like, when I lowered it to 80 hertz, I noticed a little bit more bass coming from them, and it sounded more natural. And that's how I feel too. Is if I have a speaker that's capable of, say, 70 hertz, then I have no problem with crossing it at 80. I want to kind of use the speaker to its potential.
Exactly.
I guess is
Exactly
what I'm saying.
Exactly. And I know it's not easy. Sometimes with the in ceilings, sometimes a lot of people go in ceilings for Atmos, and sometimes the in ceilings can't dig that deeper because they just they're not designed that way. And that's primarily one of the reasons I went with the SCS 8s, is because of their frequency response and how they matched up with the JTRs. They are a perfect blend. I mean, if I was to bring you in the room and did a blind test, you couldn't tell me that there was any in a timbre match issue or anything of the sort.
See, when I upgraded to the HT 110s for surround, I was going to do 4 HT 110s on the ceiling. But when we mocked it up, because I have just under 8-foot ceilings, and by the time you hang the HT 110s off brackets, it's too close to my head. So,
yeah,
obviously, I love my room, but I am very jealous of the guys with 12 and 14-foot ceilings. I'm so very jealous of those guys.
Yeah. One thing that was surprising, and Jordan mentioned this to me, is he was sitting in the back row just to experience the near field 24s. So my Atmos here are sort of just a little hair further ahead, right, in front. But he couldn't tell the difference just because they have a very wide dispersion pattern, right? They're like a 120 by 120 on these SCL 8s. So he couldn't tell, right? He could still hear the differences in the channels from the surround back and the surround and the Atmos. So that's another thing, is looking at that from that perspective, about how your seatings are going to be and what kind of pattern you would want to have in your speaker. My ceilings in the back here are only 8 feet, just because there's a riser, which is a foot. So the side surrounds, the rear Atmos and the surround back, they're pretty close together, but you can still hear the separation just because of how they're dispersed. Dispersion patterns are.
So we're about an hour and 15 minutes. Going to take one last question from our brother from Denmark, and let's pop this up here. And I think this is a great question, especially for you, Imad. Question for Imad, or Imad, as we like to call him now. Those square things on your back wall, are those diffusers, or what are they? Sorry, I don't know anything about treatments of the room, and how do they help? So after you answer his question, if you just kind of want to go into like an overall consensus of room treatments, the importance of it, how it helps the calibration, how it helps the experience, and we'll kind of wrap up the podcast with a little bit of room treatment talk.
Sure. Yeah. So those this way. No.
Stage left.
This way. This way. These are 3D three-dimensional diffusers. So you are right; those are diffusers from Sonatus USA, which is Grimani's company. So what I followed here is some of the recommendations from Grimani, where we have, when you look at if you look at Jordan's video, you'll get a very good idea of the room. But I've alternated absorption and diffusion. So 2D diffusion in the front, 3D diffusion on the ceiling, and then in the back here. So the diffusion really is a fact that it does exactly that. It diffuses sound, so it's not hitting a wall and coming back. So if you look at the patterns that Grimani's put out, right, you get all this zigzaggy things that are hitting the wall, coming to the listener, hitting the wall, coming to the listener. The diffusion disperses the sound out, right? It diffuses it, so it creates a spaciousness. Then a smaller room actually is very important because it creates that spaciousness feeling for you by diffusing that sound. So I think they're equally, if not more important, I think, than absorption. You could probably get away by having not too much absorption if you have decent amount of diffusion in the room. And I think it will help with the clarity of the sound. I have diffusion on the top here, right above my center channel, which has really helped with the clarity of the dialogue as well. So you don't have to crank up your, if you have the right treatments, you know, a lot of people, you'll find they have to crank up the center channel 3, 4, 5 dB. If you're having to do that, that is a calibration issue in the room. It could be a lack of treatment. It could be how your systems is integrated, crossovers or whatever. You shouldn't have to boost up your channel, center channel. And yeah, having the right amount of treatment in the right place, combination of absorption, diffusion, will help with that, with the clarity of the sounds and the tightness, punchiness of the bass and the dialogue.
Something I noticed when I finished my room, and I used to be one of those guys, well, like the first couple of weeks of my room, is I had to bump my center channel up like 3 or 4 dB, and it was really driving me nuts. So on the back wall, I just added like 5 inches of safe in sound, and right away I just turned it back down to, no boost. It was like I was catching a reflection, and it was muddying up the sound. So it's silly to say, but like $30 worth of insulation on the back wall made 10 times performance gain. So we all get caught up in the equipment, receivers and preamps and power amps and subs, speakers, projectors, all that stuff is cool. But if you don't have the sound right, it don't matter what you're buying. It's one of the biggest compliments, which I'm sure Ray gets as well, is that when somebody comes in the room and they're like, man, I can tell you spent a lot of time calibrating or treating this room because everything sounds right. And in the grand scheme of things, if you're in this hobby, room treatments aren't very pricey. You can DIY a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And what's good about room treatments is you can work as you go. You can just start with a couple panels.
That's what I did.
Yeah. And just kind of, he says, okay, thanks. Currently building my room and waiting on sound panels for my wall. We'll need some treatments for sure. And then thanks a lot for the answer. Helped out a lot to get a better picture of the fusion and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go crazy, like my room is right now. I mean, this has been added over a few years. But, starting with some basic, I've explained this in Jordan's video. The reason my absorber, this one here, is a different color is because somebody was throwing this out in Austin. GIK 244 panels, a year old. He was just throwing them out, and I said, "Hold on a second, I'm going to come and get them." Yeah. So Todd and I went and grabbed them. There was like 8 of them. That's like $1,000 worth of.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So just adding those initially with nothing else, right? Tighten sound up, right? That's the slap. When you test your room and you hear the echo, that went away. And then as I learned about diffusion, how it works, and where to place it. Bass strapping is all that I've just added over time. You don't have to do it all at once. And even recently, I just added some velvet above my screen on my speakers, because that's another improvement you can make to drown out any of the reflections coming on your equipment. But yeah, don't have to jump in all in at the same time.
All right. Yes. Scott, would you have time to help me one day if I make a little video show in my room? Yeah, man, if you make a video, I'll share it on the podcast, and, people will jump in on the chat. There's a lot of help in the community. A lot of us guys that have been in it for a long time don't mind, helping anybody out. And there's stuff that you might know that we don't know. And it's, that's one good thing about this community is everybody just wants to see everybody have a good time. So, yeah, definitely, send me Tango, send me whatever, man. I'll certainly share it on the channel. We'll get you some answers for everything. Thanks much. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Chester, thanks for stopping by. Ahmad, man, I told you like an hour. We're at almost an hour and a half. So always end up running over. I certainly appreciate your time, man, on a Friday night.
I really enjoyed it, man. Thank you for having me.
for anybody that has any other questions for Imad, if it regards, room setup, tuning, anything like that, all his contact info, all his information, all his services, everything on his website. Me and Imad have hung out a few times. He's a good dude, and we're going to be hanging out here and again in about a month in Wave. Yep. So it'd be cool to hang out with him and Todd. If you're coming to M-Wave, you can meet Imad yourself, and we're all going to have a good time. And I want to thank all you guys for everybody that's missing Cat tonight. We'll be on next week. We're going to be talking about the get together. Bass brings us together. That was an absolute blast. So, all right, everybody, we are out. I'll throw you in the green room real quick, Ray, and then I'll see you in a minute. Okay.
All right. Cool.
All right, guys. So it's been a while since I've done a live. Certainly a good one tonight. We will be out here next week. Kat and I are going to be talking about our latest get together. Then next month we got M-Wave coming. I got a special guest coming on next month. Her and I will be going M-Wave together. So then we'll get Kat's thoughts on M-Wave and the traveling and just how that whole event goes. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us, joining on the chat, taking up an hour and a half of your Friday night. Hope you guys have a great weekend. For a lot of you guys asking about the new shirts that Kat and I just had made for Bass Brings Us Together and our YouTube channel. Unfortunately, those aren't for sale to the public. I just, that was something that we had made. The only reason I'm not selling them is because I don't own any of the trademarks to JTR speakers. I reached out to Jeff Permanian and asked if I could use his logos on our shirts, but not for financial gain. I didn't even ask him that because I wasn't worried about trying to make a few bucks off that stuff. We may be giving out some shirts to our Patreon members. I'll just, it'll be our YouTube stuff and Bass Brings Us Together and stuff. I don't know. Kat and I are always talking about cool things to do on the channel. Stay tuned. Hit like, subscribe, all that other stuff. I do a terrible job of promotion, but I guess I'm supposed to be saying stuff like that. So you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for hanging out. See you next week. Plan on coming on live Wednesday night with Kat. She's in the middle of a big project herself. So we'll be talking about that. It should be Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know what day she's going to get her big project wrapped up, but we'll share some pictures of that, talk about something that Kat's been having going on, talk about the hobby, talk about our get together, hang out with you guys, which is the best thing to do. So hour and a half Friday night, we knocked it out. See you guys later. Have a good night. And Coley Gray, thank you for the intros and the outros. I just got to remember how to use all this stuff. So peace out, everybody.